All right, we're trying this again one more time. Um, Not sure what happened on that last one, but we're gonna do this again. I want to talk about the statement or the statement, the word in the Bible that comes across as "I am that I am." It's actually a name of God, and the reason I want to talk about it is because I want to bring you significance to you. What does this name mean to you, and how can you actually understand it from a different standpoint, possibly than anybody's talked about it before? We're going to just take it apart word by word the way we understand it, because in the Hebrew, it's a totally different understanding than what we think it is. And if you're a Bible person and you understand "I am that I am," and you understand it in Hebrew or in Aramaic, the meaning is very significant, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper the more you understand about it. So it's kind of a cool understanding to actually have. But we're not going to go into too much of that end of it, although I want you to understand that too. I do have a link to another video that's by a gentleman. I can't think of his name. It is Jeff Benner, who has a really good video on "I am that I am" and on the meaning of it and the Hebrew and exactly the understanding, so you can understand it better. So we're going to actually talk about it from how is it significant to you, and "I am," how those words can change your life, can make you or break you. So we're going to jump right into this in a second. I want to remind you to go ahead and subscribe to MindRewire if you're not already. Subscribe and ding the bell if you want notifications for when I go live. I don't do it often, but when I do, I try and make it hit home. So hopefully this is helpful to you and it's something that'll resonate with you. So let's jump right into this. So the phrase is "I am that I am." We're going to take it apart and see if we can help understand it a little bit and then apply it to our own lives. So let's start with the word "I." From an English standpoint, "I" usually describes a little bit of our egoistic nature, right? It's about the ego, um, and it's that part of you that a lot of times we're told to mat down, like calm your ego down. Don't be ego driven. Don't be egoistic. But ego has two different natures. It has two different sides. It has a side that we look at that we're told from like a psychology standpoint that you don't want to have. You don't want to be egoistic. And then there's another nature to it where if your ego gets to a point where you just understand what you understand, but you have no conflict with anything around you, it's a whole different side of ego. It's a whole different place to stand. And so the word "I" by itself, that letter "I" becomes very important. I relating back to you as this ego, as this person. And then we attach the word "am." I am. Am is a connecting word in the English language. It doesn't mean a whole lot of it, except that it connects you to something else. Now, the phrase or the name of God, "I am that I am," if you look at it in the Hebrew, it's going to be a totally different understanding. And I'll give you some of that in a second. But it'll help you understand why when you say "I am" and then you name something, it becomes such an integral part of you. Because the phrase itself holds so much power and it holds so much worth as far as the name of God is concerned. So remember that when you're saying "I am" anything, you want it to be "I am" and something so positive and something so beautiful that it uplifts and opens up your ego into a different expression, and it doesn't mat you down and hold you out of your own life. So think about what you are saying to yourself. What are some of the words that you use? I am what? What are you describing? I am who? Who are you describing? Right? What are the words that follow "I am"? A lot of times they are things like "I am no good," "I am too fat," "I can't do this," and it's on and on and on. Those are the words that you have to look at and you have to switch, because "I am that I am" is such a strong, powerful statement that if you start committing to yourself that you are something, you could literally get yourself stuck in some deep stuff. And that's exactly what happens our whole lives, right? We're told different things about ourselves, and then we either choose to believe them or not. And if you choose to believe something that's really not true about you, that's when we can get into a mess. So let's take a look at it for a second in the Hebrew. The word itself that we're actually looking at, the name of God that we're talking about, is Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh. And I'm going to show you that because I don't know that I pronounced it quite right. And of course, that's going to look backwards, but hopefully you'll get what I'm saying there. The word itself is the name that he gave Moses. And because Moses was asking, what do I call you? What do I tell the people when I go back down? And so this is the name he gave them. The name itself means many different things. In the Hebrew form, it translates into a first person, a second person, and a third person. So depending on the context that it is used, it can actually mean something different. So it can mean I am. It can mean I will exist. It can mean you are, you exist. It can mean he is or he exists. It also has the meanings of work, to make, to create, to praise. These are all meanings of different parts of that phrase. In the Hebrew, they operate from tenses. So a word itself, a verb itself, is either in perfect tense or imperfect tense. And that tense relates back to action. If it's in perfect tense, that means it's complete. It's something that's done. If it's in imperfect tense, that means it's incomplete. It isn't something that's finished yet. It's still in the works. We don't translate our words that way. We don't think that way. Our English language, verbs are usually time bound, right? That we translate things in terms of time, not in terms of action. So there's a difference in the thought process when you're saying a certain word versus saying another word. And that's where some of this stuff can get really confusing if you're looking at sacred scripture and you're reading through some of this stuff and you're trying to understand what it means, but it doesn't quite make a ton of sense. It's because the way it was written and how we understand it because of the way we were taught are not the same. And you can't read it the same. You can't look at it the same, or you will get a messed up viewpoint. And that's exactly what's happened with a lot of us. So when you read that phrase, I am that I am, you could say, I am that I exist, right? That's one of the meanings. I am that you exist. I am that he exists. I was just now looking for, let me see if I can find this real quick. I don't know that it'll show up for you on there, but I can look at it and, okay, other meanings. I will exist because I will exist. I exist because I exist. I am who I am. That's an interesting one. I will be who I will be, right? And this is all outcome-based stuff. This is all action-related ways to think of this phrase. Another one is, I am that which exists. It's all very interesting when you start looking at it like that, because every time I ever heard I am that I am, it didn't make a ton of sense. And I am that I am, and everybody would just say, well, God is what he is. Okay, I'll give you that. But when you break it down, there's more to it than what we understand. There's more to it. And the word itself was a sacred word. So much so to the Jews that they actually wouldn't even pronounce it. They wouldn't say the actual word. So that part to me is interesting. Significance to you. When you say I am anything, it still holds the power that came with it way back. It still holds that power. Tell me it doesn't. I listen to people all the time going, I am, and then they'll say something, and I'm just like, oh, why would you say that about yourself? I have a kiddo that runs around saying, I'm a bitch all the time. I'm like, why? Why do you say that? I'm mean, I'm this, I'm that, like all these weird, I'm just like, no, don't put that in your own soul. Don't put that in your own heart. Say things that are, on the positive side, right? This is where words and thoughts get so important that you have to say them in such a way that they lift you up and bring you into a different place. You'll feel different. It'll bring you into a different vibration. And this is more on the spiritual side than the chemical side of your body producing chemicals that make you feel good or make you feel bad. So this side of the spectrum is totally different than when we're looking at the chemical base, although the two interplay totally together. They work together perfectly. So when you're saying I am, think in terms of creation. right? And if we're taking that sentence totally apart and you're really trying to understand it and look at it from a different standpoint, I am, the word that actually was a symbol. It looked like a little comma, and it's pronounced yud. It's Y-U-D. And that little symbol holds a ton of power. It's about creation. It's about being able to make and praise. It's a huge, huge, and it actually relates to the number 10, which has its own significance. So it gets deeper and deeper when you start really paying attention to that. So I am that I am. I exist that I exist. Start putting your own words in there. I am whole. I am good. I am enough. What words can you drop in there that will help you change your own existence because of the power inside of those phrases? That little comma is about creation. It gives you a way that you can actually start to create around you. And it's not a comma, actually. It looks like a comma. It's called Yud. It's Y-U-D, like I said before. I had it drawn out. Here we go. That's what it looks like. And it's just a whole different way about thinking in terms of how you talk to yourself. That name of God becomes a very strong phrase. And when you're actually using it and saying it, I've been walking around saying it 10 times because it relates to the number 10. Does that have any bearing or significance in what it does for me? I have no idea, but every time I do it, I feel amazing. And I'll drop my own words in there. I am enough that I'm enough. I exist that I exist. I create that I create. However it turns out for you, whatever word you're using with it, just make it more powerful and make the words better than what you used the last time. If you're using negative words, you're going to receive a negative output. And remember, if you're thinking in tenses of God, you're using part of the name of God while you're adding negative words. It's interesting how it all kind of plays out. And we hear about, don't use the Lord's name in vain kind of idea. This is one of his names. This is one of Creator's names. This is one of God's names. And if you think in that tense, every time you say I am and something negative, you're saying something negative. It's going to come back to you. And it is, it's vain. You're saying things that you're like blowing air into the wind. It's just vain. It doesn't do anything. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not profitable to you. So that would be my suggestion, is think about the word I am, put something good in there, and then keep bringing that back into your system, right? That's not just a connecting word. There's a lot of power in it when you translate it back to the Hebrew. All right, I hope that helps. I will put that other video in here so you can actually go watch that young man's video that he made, because he was translating it straight into the Hebrew and talking about the exact translations of the name of God. And that was one. He was talking about Yahweh and all these other names that we use that aren't even, he goes, those aren't real names of God. Those are made up names because the Jewish people wouldn't say his real name. And because they wouldn't say it, it lost some of the power. It lost some of the amplitude. So when we go back and use the power in it, that's when we get huge differences quicker. I believe it shortens the time gap and it increases our power and ability to do what we were called to do in this lifetime. So I hope this helps. I am enough. I am good. I love this video. I hope you do too. If you do, comment below, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks.